on set. No, we really can't.
No, one time I yelled at Shaney Waney because his phone.
We're getting ready to record.
Because he was listening to something on, cranked it to 11. I was like, Shaney Waney, while we were recording. He loves when I call him that.
Crinkling his
candy wrapper.
Cupcake bites.
Yeah, whatever his wrapper is or whatever stuff he's eating. So we are here after the holiday, and we have a full studio. In case you hear anything in the background, I apologize for that.
We're going now?
Yeah, we're going now.
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.
Yeah.
That's good stuff.
Wow, damn it.
David's phone going
God.
off. See, I told you. You know, I think we need.
Frickin'
I think we need to
amateurs.
shop for a new place. I think we need to get a place with a walled-off studio and
Hey,
more room.
I
and
don't mind that.
You have your own office where you can enjoy whatever products you want to enjoy to help you write better and stuff.
What?
And what?
Products. I don't know what you're talking about.
Products? What?
Anyway, did you guys ring in the new year in style, or were you lazy and...
In bed at 11 o'clock.
Yeah. Okay, so you rang it in working.
Yep.
Okay. I rang it in sort of working and then made it home just in the nick of time to celebrate with the family.
Nice.
Because I think I mentioned to you that I had never, since Luke and I got together, we have never been apart on New Year's Eve ringing in the new year, which is a pretty big feat considering I think we've been together almost 19 years.
Yeah. New
So,
Year's, I mean, Ellen and I have been together 30-some, and I don't remember a New Year's where we were ever apart.
There have
Yeah.
been times when, like, I'm working and I think that he's not coming because, like, he's like, well, I'm just going to stay home or whatever. And as he, probably should because, I don't know, like, well, generally because we have Mela and stuff
Yeah.
like that.
Sure.
But there will always, like, he always makes it somehow.
Nice.
And then it's always, like, at the last minute. This
And it's
time
so
he was
sweet.
there. And I knew he was going to be there, so I didn't get, like, the welled up teary eyes like
Yeah.
I always do. But, yeah, whenever I'm working and I think I'm not going to be there to share my midnight kiss, I get all...
Well, our rationale was it was midnight in New York, so we did an 11 o'clock kiss.
There
so
you
we
go.
were fine. So,
There you
and
go.
They'll do away with time changes someday, and we'll be okay.
I
So,
saw-
It's going to be soon.
Hope so. Anyway.
I saw this thing where parents were going around their house setting their clocks forward or back or forward a
Forward,
couple
yeah.
hours so that
So the
they
kids would
could
go to bed?
Yeah, so
Yeah.
that they could just ring it
Nice.
in and then go to bed. I thought that was pretty genius. But
Did you work
yeah.
last night as well?
Yes, I did.
So Spring Street was open New Year's Day, the night of New Year's Day. Then.
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah,
okay.
and it's always a dead day. It's a busy day, dead night.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Like everyone's kind of done.
I think-
but there were some other bars that were still busy last night.
So, like, Kelly's has become kind of one of our pseudo traditions.
On
This
the
year we
day?
were gone, but New Year's Day, instead of going out New Year's Eve, because it used to be New Year's Eve was the big hoorah,
yeah.
right? You would go out and there would be special occasions. Then, as we got older, I don't know if it kind of aged with us that bars understood that ye old folk like to day drink so we can be home and in bed and still make it to work the next day.
I think that's
Yeah, so Kelly's Silver Dollar, I know a lot of places did. They focus more on the day drinking celebrations, which I think is pretty cool.
Or have you tried the pickled herring
Yeah.
from Kelly's ever?
Yeah, and I'm a fan of fish. Pickled herring to me is
It's like
not,
a shot of Malort.
Yeah, it's not my
Ooh,
favorite.
Don't say no more.
But the good news is they have the best cocktails to wash it down with. So then you get your good
Right.
luck and prosperity and your cocktail. So yeah. Yeah, two birds, one stone.
But no, it was it was a nice quiet, and now we're kind of back in the swing and getting things geared up for the weekend, and of course, or next week as well, and the new year and everything. We have our new expanded morning show. We're kind of excited about, and also, but we have to get through this weekend. And our friend meteorologist Brent Clare says you're going to have a whole lot of snow to trudge through Monday.
Yeah, but is it because
Snow
I
day.
feel like okay, here's what I was thinking.
Well, school's already out.
The kiddos go back on Tuesday.
Uh-huh.
If this weather pattern, and I'm speaking out of my ass here because I don't know anything about that, but if it gears up the way it's supposed to, back to school Tuesday may be out. But I don't trust anything that I see.
Well, I think Monday. I think what they will probably end up doing is the teachers won't have to go back for their stuff on Monday.
I think they
Yeah.
will.
I think the teachers will end up getting the day, and then I think they'll get everything cleared off and ready to go, and I think they'll go back.
I think it's going to be a
Tuesday.
dusting.
Me
You
too.
can quote
and
me
I
on
think
that.
The teachers will have to
Sometimes-
go regardless.
Sometimes I feel like grocery stores or the consumerism of it pays these weather people to fanaticize
Well, okay,
the storms.
So we are Quincyans.
Yeah.
Like I mean, that's the busiest nights of the bars is when it's a snowstorm. 3 inches? What?
No, this is supposed to be.
It's gonna be like 10.
3 inches and then a multiple
Oh,
of
it's-
10 after.
yeah.
That's what they all say.
Well, first off, Brent helps us out and does weather for us, of course, with our friends at Farm and Home Supply. They do the regular
Thanks, Brent.
weekly
We're
weathercast.
not dogging on your
But he
forecast.
also
No.
he's going to
Yeah.
provide regular updates that we're going to post on the site throughout the weekend. And he also is not paid by Hy-Vee and Neiman's are both fine and are fine Muddy River News advertisers, and they are not paying him any extra money
To say that
that.
you need to go out and get your
I
milk
can,
and
I can
bread.
assure that. I can assure you of that. We are not sending any
Oh
money.
yeah, I'm
Brent,
just bullshitting because I'm like, there's
exasperate.
got to be a reason that because
I
I
know.
kind of get excited.
That conspiracy's been out there for a while. That
But
the
really?
grocery stores pay the TV stations
Really?
to. Yeah, no,
Yeah.
it doesn't. That's
Okay.
not. Yeah,
Well-
Brian would say no. I mean,
Well, then I
Brandon
see
himself.
see all these like Illinois storm chasers, and they're putting out like 18 plus inches. I'm like, that there is no way to predict. It's hard enough to predict what tomorrow is going to do, let alone a week in advance. So I'm like, I don't know. Take it with a grain of salt. Salt your driveway if you want, but take that with a grain of salt.
I had to pick up some beer for today, and I also picked up a little extra for my friend Snow Daddy, who clears our driveway when the snow comes.
That's what you call him?
He's Snow Daddy.
Ooh. Did you
Yes.
make him a shirt?
He doesn't have a shirt yet, but
Okay.
he takes payment in cases in 30 packs of Busch Light.
Who is it? Your son?
I can't tell you who it is.
Oh.
No, Mike, no.
Could you tell us off camera? Because I have a 30
Yes,
pack
I can tell you
throw
off camera.
Snow
yes.
Daddy's way.
Yeah, I don't want
okay,
him
cool.
to get all busy and everything. But
'Cause we got a snow plow, no, it's not snow
blower?
blower.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. But once you get over like 4 inches, that thing's like, you might as well
no,
just
he
be
cranks
out
it
there.
out. I mean, he does a great job, and
Really?
he's friends with my neighbor Dax, and he always did Dax, and then he just started doing our driveways for like just doing them because
Yeah.
he's a good guy. And I said, "Well, I want to give you some money or something." He's, just give me some beer. So Don O'Brien and I started just getting 30 packs of Busch Light, and
Yeah.
we just set them on Dax's porch, and he does our driveways. He takes his Busch Light and.
There you
he's
go.
gone.
You just revealed
Did
who
you
Snow
see-
Daddy is.
Oh, shit.
I didn't say who it was.
Did you see?
I just said that it was our neighborhood. The guy does not live in our neighborhood.
Okay.
Did you guys see I don't remember what city it was. They did a name the snowplow.
Yes.
A genius,
Yeah.
right? Well,
Chicago did,
Control
right?
Salt Delete was the name of the truck, which I think is genius. But I think even more overarching than that was the kind of brought everybody together to name this truck, and I think even people threw some money at it to like, oh hey, if you vote for mine, it's kind of like donating to people to get them for more St. Jude or whatever, kind of along the same lines as that. I think we need to do that for our pothole truck.
Yeah.
Right? You kill them, we fill them. I think that's a pretty good one, right?
That's a long name.
I hope it's still
I
working.
don't know. Is it?
I don't know.
I've seen it
was
around a
out-
couple times.
Okay,
I'm not
good,
gonna
because it was
dog
out of
on it
action
tonight,
for a
but-
while. I've seen the street sweeper. I used to see it. It'll come out here early on like during the week. I'll see it, but we
Yeah.
want it now because it's cold. But
Yeah.
So yeah, I think we're gonna get hit. I think we're gonna get a bunch of snow.
Really?
So
All right, are we going to do a prediction like we did with the election?
sure.
Okay. All right, I'm going 1 to 3 inches max.
Then I'll do 4 inches.
Okay.
7.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
You think it's 7? Mm-hmm. All right, well, if it's 7, it's probably going to be like a foot. Because,
That's what I tell them.
shit. Okay. Well, it's getting deep here now, folks. It may not be snow, but Bobby's got that covered. So that's hilarious.
Just saying.
Yeah.
Yeah. So no, I think we're gonna get some snow. I think it'll be fun, and we've got football. Well, the last week in the NFL is kind of there's not because all the divisions are mostly divided. I mean, the game on Sunday
Yeah,
night's good. But we're leading into something that Ashley wants to talk about because now she's a Detroit Lions
Dude,
fan.
okay.
Because she thinks Dan Campbell's hot.
I do think Dan Campbell is hot, but more than that, they have never even been to the Super Bowl. And
Correct.
there are 4 teams who haven't been. And out of the 4 of them, look at me go, dude. Okay? Listen, I'm telling you, give me a few drinks and let me watch some football. I do some research. I'm not necessarily
You're not watching. You're sitting
No,
there.
I'm
Googling.
researching because I'm like, okay, have they ever made it? No. And they were playing against the 49ers.
Would you like me to tell you the 4 teams?
I know it's the Texans, the Browns, the Lions, and
Jaguars.
Okay, so,
Those are the 4 that have never made it.
Correct.
yeah.
And they should all have their own movies.
Right? So then I'm like, okay, I'm watching and I'm like, well, the coach is hot. The player's on the field. Did you see him like massaging his hip? He's like squirming
Yeah.
around. I was like,
Oh yeah,
whoa.
the kicker.
I was
yeah,
like,
the kicker
who's
was
that
trying to get
feller?
his hip loose or whatever.
Yeah.
I'm like, what the heck kind of soft
Looked
porn
like
is
soft
this
porn.
guy?
Yeah, I did. And I was like,
whoa.
well, I think Ashley
it
just
is
became
the
a
NFL.
Lions fan. Huh?
What's that got to do with
What'd she say?
anything?
He said soft porn.
I said soft porn. He said NFL.
Well, I mean, yeah. Isn't it? No, not the same thing.
What's the correlation?
I don't know. The NFL is just not what it used to be. It's not really focused on.
Are you're saying it's produced?
You're saying it's not as they don't
No.
hit as hard.
No, I'm just saying-
it's soft now. It's the no fun league as they call
No,
it.
you're missing my point. Like, it's more of an entertainment factor than it is a sport.
It's there's a drama
And then,
to it,
yeah,
like the Kansas City
the
Chiefs.
odds-
fixed.
Well, I'm not saying I'm not going that far, but when you're talking about, do you remember when they used to call soap
I'm
operas
talking about
stories?
Beyonce halftime performances
Yeah.
and things like that.
Okay.
Taylor Swift. Some of these things
Gotcha.
happen, and
Don't
it brings
rip
on like
on
I'm
Tay-Tay.
not ripping
We're
on
not.
Taylor.
She's talking about the extracurriculars.
I'm
that
just
football's
saying.
doing
Okay,
now.
it started with Mahomes, right? He twisted his ankle, and that thing got freaking blown out of like every 2 seconds they were talking about his damn ankle because he was the player that everybody was watching. So they publicized him to the max. Then they got a lot more. The Kansas City Chiefs got a lot more following because of that. Then
They
Taylor
got
Swift
following
comes in.
because of the 3 Super Bowls. Is why they got the following. They won 3 Super Bowls.
Well, or because how much they marketed him as a player.
They've won 3 Super Bowls. They can market him all they want, but if they don't win, nobody gives a shit.
Yeah.
I mean, you got to win.
I don't
That's
know.
The bottom line in the NFL,
Lions
you
have
gotta win.
obviously never been, and I'm now true blue.
You are. By the way, that Honolulu blue is the color of their
Oh, really?
uniforms, by the
Okay.
way. Yes. So
Well-
they have a great quarterback with a great last name, Jared Goff, who she would have won a playoff
Goff,
game.
by the
Yes,
way.
who she would have played if she'd won her playoff game if she'd have played him. So
Anyway, look at me go. All the sports talk. Holy shit. Was
See?
not a resolution, but by golly, I sure
so
got it
excited.
nailed.
You know what? You guys are going to
Yeah.
sit down with Matt out there on a Monday night and talk some hoops now. It'll be great.
I don't know about hoops. I don't really
You
know
were talking about
basketball,
Quincy
but-
High on Coffee Talk
Well,
the other
that's
day.
because-
so.
We can
First
be
of
fans
all-
and not know what we're talking about. We can also put stuff out there and not know what we're talking about,
don't-
which is how we usually bring people in.
So
Yes.
our guest came in, and I was like, you know what? It's really exciting that you're here because we generally don't know our ass from our heads when we're talking about certain subject matter. When we brought Eric Entrup on, it was really interesting to sit down and talk to him. However, I was contacted by someone from the firefighters union. He said, we just want to come on and talk about some things, maybe clear up some misconceptions, because I think some things were said during that interview that maybe got misconstrued or maybe were misrepresented. And we always like to get the other side of the story because as we all know, there's more than one side, and
It's usually an octagon.
I was going to say there's usually more than 2 sides to every story. So we're not here to crucify anyone or any organization or anything. It's just we're here to, I guess, educate maybe ourselves even,
Yeah.
right? And that's something that we talked about resolutions the other day. Not necessarily a resolution, but I love to learn. We're always
Yeah.
very curious about things. And I know, even in my older age, I'm not set in my ways. I love learning things about our community, the people who serve our community. Even Bob, when I learn some things about you every day that I just never knew that I would.
Uh-oh.
No, I'm kidding. Nothing. Nothing. But no, I think that's one thing that as a team, we're always. I think we do a pretty good job at hearing all sides of the story and hopefully not talking too much out of our asses. But that's why
our curiosity
Yeah.
will sometimes kick us in the butt.
It does. But I'm always eternally grateful to anybody who reaches out and says, hey, we want to come on and talk to you about some things. And it's not out of, I don't think it's out of any, it's not like, oh, you guys suck. It's just we want to inform the public. Transparency
Also,
and education is
reach
important.
out too.
Yeah.
Yeah,
we
we're
want
glad
more
to,
of that.
yeah.
We want more of that
Feedback's
in the new
good.
year. We want more people.
Constructive feedback.
Amen.
Yeah, but come out and say if
Not anonymous cat turd bullshit
No.
coming after us.
Good point.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
I would love to have Cat Turd on as a guest, though.
Oh, God.
That's not a local person, is it?
No, God,
Okay.
no, it's a national person.
I'm sure we have a cat turd here in Quincy, though.
We got a lot of cat
Yeah.
turds around
Okay.
here. So.
Well-
All right. So we'll be back and we'll have a chat with those fellas right after this.
I don't know shit about
I don't know shit
anything
about
cat turds.
The Liquor Booth is your home for a huge selection of beer, wine, and spirits. The Liquor Booth has 2 locations in Quincy, 3520 Broadway and 1500 North 12th Street. The Liquor Booth, where it's always happy hour.
On an upcoming Muddy River Gem, brought to you by Dot Foods, learn about one of Quincy's best-kept secrets. You have been doing research on one-room schoolhouses in Adams County for decades. And after all that time, you've located where they all are, you've made maps, and you've collected everything we see here in this building that has something to do, was either in a one-room schoolhouse or reflects what it was like in a one-room schoolhouse. That's coming up on the next Muddy River Gem, brought to you by Dot Foods.
Pensions started, especially for firefighters in this area, around 1937-ish, right? For police, it started in the late 1800s. It's been around for a long time, and it was initially started to not only attract public service workers, because it is dangerous. It is, there are inherent dangers to it. And to get people without certain backing was difficult. It also was to help people during certain periods of time that you didn't have a guarantee of having money after you were done doing the job, right? So it was traditionally put in place to attract, but also support after you've done a job for as a public servant, right?
Yeah, and pensions were such a big thing. It
Starting,
was there to attract, keep employees.
Yeah.
Okay. So there's kind of two different sides to that one too. So these things have been around forever.
yeah,
Okay. And over the course of many, many years, what would happen is the state would come out and say, you need to fund these to a certain percentage.
right.
Now, our pension is totally separate from like teachers and like IMRF. Okay. Now, the big
What's
difference,
that?
Illinois Municipal Retirement Fund.
Okay.
So like every other state employee, I don't know if it's a
Like
state.
the government employee.
Yeah, the government, your other.
Like license
Like your office-
bureau
your
or
office
whatever.
workers,
Okay.
your city garbage men. all
Okay.
that. Their fund is totally separate from police and fire. But here's the big difference is IMRF actually it's statute that you have to fund it at a certain level.
As an employee.
No, as a city.
Oh, okay.
So over
In Quincy, and the fire isn't like that,
no, it wasn't for a long time.
but now it is.
But now, well, sort of. I'm
It's
getting
getting
there.
there.
It's getting
Sorry,
there. Yeah,
sorry.
no, it's okay. It's like again,
Yeah.
there's like 14 different
Lots of
sides
layers.
to this.
Mhm.
So like IMRF is 100% funded and forever because the state came out and said, city, Quincy, whatever, any other municipality, you have to fund it to these levels. So these towns, these cities didn't have a choice. They had to put money in. But like the police and fire pension, they would look at it, they would get an actuarial, okay, is what it's called. And I think that was one of the questions you brought up in your last interview is like, how do we even know what's what, and how we're paying for this? So the pension fund, which is actually made up of 2 active firefighters here in town, 2 retired firefighters, and is it 1 or 2 for the city? I think it's 1, but
Yeah, I think it's one.
there's 1 and there's a treasurer.
Okay.
Yeah.
But there's a board that kind of oversees that. They get an actuarial from the state that says, here's what we think you ought to pay. And then a lot of times the city will actually pay a separate company to come in and tell them, yes, this is right, or this is what we think you should pay.
Which they did do just recently. Right?
They usually do it almost.
So they can't do it anymore.
But
Right, right now the state kind of
Yeah,
comes up
well,
with the
it's-
magic number that they have to
Yeah.
pay into the pension. Prior to that, they had the option to say, hey, we're gonna hire a private company. I'm just pulling numbers out of the air.
Yeah.
Let's just say the actuarial said, hey, the city of Quincy, you need to pay $300,000 to the pension to fund it properly. And they would get an actuarial, a private company to run the numbers and say, hey, no, that you only need to pay $250. So then they had the option to pay the $250 from the private company that they hired or the $300. that
Or
the
not
state-
even
But it's
pay them.
kind of
Yeah.
a conflict of interest.
So they would always pick the lower number.
For sure.
Once again,
Yeah.
I'm here to kind of kudos to the current administration
Uh-huh.
has had nothing to do with this big piece of crap that was thrown in their lap.
Okay.
It's previous administration. I
Now
call
you're
it
talking
I-
city.
city. Yeah,
City of
30,
Quincy.
40 years.
Okay.
I call it kick the can city.
Down the road, yeah.
Let's
yeah,
kick
yeah.
the can. Let's kick the can. Well, I mean, it sounds silly, but it got to the point where a semi ran over the can. So did you ever try to kick a flat can?
Right.
We just couldn't kick it anymore.
Right.
Who
So
so the
that's-
actuarial for 2024 though? It
Would-
was a private
It'll come
company,
from the
right?
state.
The state, I believe, comes up with that.
It did.
And what's silly
But
is
they pay a private.
yeah,
what I'd
it-
like.
Sure.
Okay, yeah, they
it came up
so.
with a private company.
But it's still what I think agree with is do you know what 50% funded even means? Or 100% funded?
I
They
think
wanted
that
their
you're-
goal is to make it 100% funded.
By whom?
if every guy that's working at the Quincy Fire Department said, I'm retiring today, whether they got a year on or 30 years on, there has to be enough money in there to fund that. That's 100% funded.
But it's only
So
So the terminology is kind of silly because
Well, if
every
you-
firefighter can't retire.
You
today.
have to have money available, and this is she and I were talking about this. So right now, one question, because I feel like things get so in depth that it's hard to have a conversation fully transparent, right? Because there's
And
so
all-
much shit,
everything we're saying is out there.
right?
Yeah. So
But okay, so today is the pension for our local
Mhm.
firefighters, right?
Yep.
For you guys, is
It's healthy,
it's healthy?
Yeah.
Now, does that take
sustainable.
so about 50%.
But is that
supposed to be at?
sorry?
So where the state has mandated that by 2040, is it 80 or 90?
I thought it was
Yeah,
90%.
they want you at 90%. Okay.
Now is that
But part
90% to if all of you guys retired today?
It's not like what he
It's
was.
90% of the firemen would retire today.
Which is
You'd
fine.
have to have the money in there.
But
to fund.
here's
But that's not reality in any
Yeah,
way, shape, or
Sure.
form.
But here's the good part about it. Okay, so like we're 50% funded. We paid out roughly $3 million in claims to our retirees this year. Okay, so we have about 55 million sitting in our pension fund. If we were 80% funded, so we're sitting around 80, $90 million, the fund actually got a 10% return on its money this year. You wouldn't have had to put any money into it as a city if it was funded to the proper levels. So that's where like the state has come in and said, you guys need to start funding these and get it to the point where it's self-sustainable.
I see. So you're saying if the city would have upheld kind of their end of the agreement and they invested the amount that they were supposed to invest, the investment would have
Over
given you
many
back
years,
dividends.
yeah.
Because they are now repaying double, right? Or
They're
something
trying to
like
catch,
that.
it's catch-up
It's-
payments.
It's paying your robbing Peter to pay Paul.
So an easy way to like to conceptualize it for everybody out there is like think about it like minimum credit card payments.
Yeah.
Okay. If you make the minimum payments, it takes you 30 years to pay it off. They weren't even paying the minimum. They were just looking at it and saying, well, they would look at that number and say, well, we're 40% funded. Okay, we know 60% of the firefighters are not going to retire. And we'll just put a little bit in here and a little bit in there.
And
and
so they were
eventually-
using the funds
Yeah.
elsewhere. Is that correct?
That's
Yeah,
fair.
Not
Yeah,
the funds-
yeah.
okay.
So,
Yeah.
and that's kind of the hang up for us is that like we held up our end of the bargain as the firefighters. You as the taxpayer held up your end of the bargain. You gave the money to the city to say fund these things. But over many, many years, they just didn't fund it properly. And where this like 80, 90% number kind of came in, and I think I'll answer one of your questions you had from the last podcast, like, well, what happens if we just don't pay?
Yeah.
Okay, so the two case studies for this are Harvey, Illinois and East St. Louis.
Yeah.
Because what happened to them is they were even more aggressive about not paying their pension claims. And then they also had like a big major economic downturn. Like look at East St. Louis, there was, we used to haul cattle back there
Yeah.
back in the day. And now you can't do that anymore. So like
Also
city-
kind of Detroit if we're looking
Yeah.
for like a larger scale.
yeah. So like they were
Detroit Lions.
Yeah, they always fund their football.
Look, I knew there was a connection there,
I
but
wasn't gonna, bring up that elephant in the room.
But yeah.
What do you say to the people that think that, the pension system is draining the city? That, maybe we'll
I'll
end
give
up
my
in-
opinion because
in a
I'm ready to
Detroit-
retire.
do that.
You think about where you work and the day you started there, they said, hey,
I don't feel
you give me 25, 30 years of your life here as a career. I'm going to give you this in return. And for me, I guess it'd be, I'll have 29 years on in February. 29 years into it, they come to you and go, oh, hey, sorry about that. We're not going to give you what we said.
Yeah.
I mean,
It does.
I think
happen
anybody
every
would
day,
feel
to be
that.
quite fair.
What, and you know what? I kind of get it. It's the people that don't have pensions they don't like the
It's
people
the-
that do have it. I'm
It's
telling
not
you.
that we don't like. So let's
there's-
just be really clear here that everyone here at Muddy River News respects every public service worker, every sector. It's just a question
wanna know
of
what you're
how
paying
do
for.
we. Well, and I think
Also,
the big
you-
problem is transparency.
You
That's
don't-
always been the problem.
But
and
I think also the argument isn't ever taking away something that was promised already.
Yeah,
I know
okay.
that we
So let's- yeah.
generally
So that's how tier 2 came about. They said, hey, we need to tweak this.
Yeah.
It's not gonna be sustainable, or it's gonna be so much money. So then they
Tier
create,
two
so then they created
Okay, so
two
let's
tier,
touch on
tier
this.
2.
So
I
let's go
call it
back to
2 tiers
Harvey.
because
and
everybody's
this-
crying.
Let's go back to Harvey. Yeah.
Oh, that's cute.
So, yeah.
Okay, let's take a break real quick here because I have to mention Keith's sweatshirt. It's freaking amazing.
Hey.
So he thought he was going to be.
I thought
just
this
on the
was radio, and I'm like, I don't have to get all pretty.
Okay,
I love
never
it.
mind.
Oh, okay, so it just goes down to the ultimate foundation of we are not haters. I don't think
No.
anybody's haters. It's a matter of
Question.
managing things, making things sustainable, and giving people what they were promised. We
Right.
want all sides, and I think
Right.
you guys do too.
Yeah.
So talking about it is how we plan on making that happen. So let's go back to real quick. The foundation of the pensions worked just fine until a certain period of time, and maybe that certain period of time was city leadership that underestimated how much they would need to project to have in kind of a bucket, right?
Yeah, and then
And now-
economic downturn.
And all
some
things considered, now we're facing this
life expectancy
Expectancy,
is a big
right?
one.
life expectancy, also inflation, deflation, all these things, they come into play. But you guys were promised something, which is what you were just alluding to, right? Never, nobody wants to take something from anyone that they were promised. It does come into play. What do we see as a solution?
Yeah.
What do we see as sustainability? And I do think that pensions done correctly are sustainable.
Absolutely.
I do think that pensions have been done incorrectly. And now taxpayers are kind of like, holy shit, are we going to catch the brunt of this? Because we don't know how to catch up
Yeah.
now. Does that
And
make sense?
Yeah, and you get those scare tactics a lot too.
Yeah.
Of like, you're like, if you just like Google Quincy, Illinois pensions, the first thing that pops up is like a news article, and it's like every taxpayer owes $300,000, towards pensions, and
Yeah.
it's scary. And then you'll get something that'll come out and fear mongering. It's like your taxes are going up 50% because of pensions. Okay. For one, like your city portion of the tax, your
Mhm.
tax bill is only roughly 10%.
10%, which is something that I
Right.
think that we touched on in the last interview because, again, fear mongering is insane. And then when you go into, you have a city council meeting and it's never bucketed in a way that you're like, oh,
Yeah.
okay, so I'm assuming that 50% of my property taxes, I mean, let's just throw rough numbers. If I'm paying 6,000, which is a lot of money, you're going to pay $3,000 more.
Right.
Okay. That's not the case.
And it's all because those greedy firemen want their pensions.
It's
like,
all because of
wait,
you guys,
Exactly.
stupid assholes,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
No, or police
Yeah.
officers, and we
Yeah.
all have. I mean, Quincy's a small enough town that we all have people we
Yeah.
know and love on both sides. So it's like this is not an
Yeah.
if or it's a we can figure this out. I
Yeah.
think. Okay.
And
So,
so let's back up to like the Harvey and the East St. Louis one because it kind of ties it all in together.
Okay.
Because when we went to tier 2,
Mhm.
part of the compromise was they said, okay, we're going to reduce these benefits because you guys as municipalities are saying you can't afford this. So the compromise is going to be you're going to be mandated to fund these to a certain percent, 90% by 2040. Also, part of the compromise was like, so what happened in Harvey and East St. Louis, the city just decided to try, well, we're just not going to pay them. Let's see what happens. So we as a union actually have recourse where we can petition the state to intercept your sales tax and force the city to pay the pensions. That's not, we're not going to do that. We are so
But there-
far away from
but there
doing that.
are
But
because
that's what Harvey and East St.
Yeah.
Louis were forced to do because they held up their end of the bargain. Part of the compromise was we're going to take less benefits, but we have to have a way that we can recoup because the biggest thing is about these pensions is, for one, most firefighters don't make it past 55 as a career. Okay. It just beats you down, wears you down to the point.
it's a young man's job. Is
It's
that
a
what we're
young-
saying?
well, yeah, it's-
listen.
Amen.
I'm not.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm almost 40 and it kicks my butt.
Do you think
You know?
part of it is because of the hours? I mean, do we have a lot
It's
of
very
Okay.
physically demanding.
We're on 20. What is it?
So
24 on, 48 on.
what like
This,
physically demanding meaning like
all of it. So 24 on, 48 off is the schedule.
that
Okay. So Which when people say that, they're like, well, you get 2 days off. Okay. But if you actually,
You're recouping. Your
well,
sleep.
and if you actually count the days, so if you work a standard 40-hour work week, you work 2,200 hours in a year. If you work our schedule, you work 2,700. Okay. So you actually work 500 more hours.
Let's be honest, how
In a
many
year.
are we working at 20?
Come on,
Yeah,
guys.
I've
But
seen,
we're
listen.
there.
Yeah, I know.
Well,
Yeah,
there's truth to
doing
it. Yeah,
the
it's our house.
So,
It's my home every
So
day.
there's that.
Yeah.
Okay, that's the hours piece of it. Okay. So the other piece is the stress on your body. Okay, so here's the one I like to tell people. So we're there for 24 hours. We can sleep at night,
Yeah.
it's okay
Yeah.
if there's nothing going on.
Right.
But if you ever want to like play firefighter for a night, here's what you do. You have your spouse just set an alarm for 2 or 3 times in the middle of the night. You don't know when it's going to go off. And it's the loudest thing, right next to your head that you can possibly find.
Yeah.
Make it go off and then go outside and mow your grass for about 30 minutes and then try to go back to sleep.
Yeah.
And then do that over
Yeah.
25 years.
It's like bartending.
It's like having a baby for 25
Yeah.
years.
Oh!
Yeah. Right.
Some people
That's
do.
yeah. And then you have babies and family, and then guys have, responsibilities. They have to go home and take care of this stuff. Now, let's touch on the other piece of that is that when Keith started, there was close to 70 firefighters. Now we hover around 55, 57. So there's a lot more overtime. So most guys are working closer to 3,000 hours.
Yeah.
in a
That's
year.
voluntary though, right?
And it's voluntary. Yeah, it's absolutely. So there's kind of two different sides to this when you look at these pensions. There's the human factor,
Yeah.
and then we can talk about like the money factor of it. And it's like, look, you earn this. The handshake deal we've always had with the citizens of Quincy's, we will risk our lives to protect your family.
Right.
Okay. All we're asking for is to be treated fairly, compensated fairly for that. Okay. The hard part for a lot of people to wrap their minds around in these pensions is if you don't agree with that piece of it, because let's just be honest, like there's a lot of people like you guys who want to have an open conversation. It's like, okay, if you can explain to me why this is a good thing, I'll keep an open mind.
Sure.
But there's a lot of people like Keith said, are just like, I don't care. You have something I don't have. It's just a number on a piece of paper.
I think pension as a term
Yeah.
is just negative.
It's just a
Yeah,
bad word.
it really is.
And
It
people
used to
don't
be
care.
everybody had one. If you
Yeah.
worked at Sears, you had a pension.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
So part of when was that? 2019. I think there was a constitutional amendment to the state that said once you give this benefit, you can't take it away.
Can't rescind it. Yeah.
So these things are not going away.
Yeah.
Okay. And then so like Keith and anybody that's current, you can't. I'm sorry, just being blunt. Like you can't take our pensions away.
Right.
You're gonna have to pay for them. in
I don't.
some
Yeah,
way,
I don't
shape, or
think anybody wants or
Nobody
Yeah.
wants to
I
take that
think
away.
what
Right.
they're looking for though, and what everyone is looking for, is the solution. Meaning,
Yep.
like it's not sustainable. I hate saying that
Mhm.
because, like, I know, like some people are like, no, it is, it can be, but realistically, like
If it's
population is going
fun.
down, but population in Quincy is going down. That's
Life
like
expectancy is going up.
life expectancy. Yeah. So
Mhm.
like, what is the question for the future? And I thought someone told me that we're even looking at a tier 3 system in the city where it goes closer towards like social security, or is that not the thing?
That's not
Okay,
what
so
happened.
so when we're talking about sustainability, okay, are there negotiations that you guys come to the table with as far as okay, so there are things that 401k doesn't offer that pension does, that long-standing employees of companies maybe don't get that you guys do. Are there times where you come to the table and you're like, okay, in order to avoid insolvency, which has never happened in Quincy, thank God. But the reason that hasn't happened is because if something happens and we can't uphold our end of the bargain, we dip into a general fund, which is what I understand, right? So then taxpayers, you get a tax raise, and so how do you? I guess kind of like
Yeah.
that's just
Yeah.
that is true.
Yeah,
Where's
that's
the
true.
money coming from? And I think that's the confusing part is that a municipality has funds.
Yeah.
So there's the water fund, like there's the street fund.
Right.
It's all the same money. It just depends on like where you're gonna pull
Where do you bucket
that
it?
money from.
Yeah.
Because like for years the thing was always like, well, we borrowed money from the health insurance fund.
Yeah.
You didn't borrow it, like you
Took
did,
it.
you took it
Took
from
it.
another pile of money.
Because you're going to eventually take it from somewhere
Yeah.
else to fill that.
So-
It's like a Ponzi scheme, which is kind of shit.
Well, and
But-
it got to the point where like we couldn't. People said we can't afford, or we don't want to. We don't want to pay. We don't want to increase our health or our property taxes to keep funding these pensions. So that's
Mhm.
why we went from 70 firefighters to 55.
Right.
Okay, that's why. I mean, we're at the bare minimum.
Okay.
Like we've tried this before. The city's tried this before, where they've tried to cut stations.
But I'm not talking cutting protection. I'm talking cutting different benefits.
And that was one of the things that kind of came in, and they said, I think Mr. Inchop's like, well, we're just, it's kind of lazy thinking, in my opinion. People say, let's just cut services. Like that's always the first thing people go to. And it's like, well, we've
do
got to
that,
point.
But I think you have to be transparent to
Yeah.
say, if we raise it this, or hey, if we don't raise it this, you're going to miss out on this. And if we don't raise it this, then we have to bring these guys to the table and see if they're willing to do without this.
Yeah.
Right? So there
yeah,
has to be
yeah.
some give and take.
So
How many times does that happen?
every 3 years.
Every 3
Yeah.
years.
So we have a collective bargaining agreement.
Okay.
Okay. The pension benefits, we don't negotiate. That's actually codified in the pension code. So
Okay.
the
Who
Article 4
negotiates it?
pension.
That's at the state
That's at
level.
the state level.
The state controls
So
the
if you
pension.
wanted to change the pension benefits, you would have to change the pension code.
Okay, but now when you first came on, and I'm just trying to understand,
Yeah.
you said we are not a thing to the Democratic
Mhm,
warlord,
yep.
whatever the hell it is. So how does it play into state? How does your union play into state?
So we have like tiers to it.
Uh-huh.
So it starts with we're the local level, and then there's a state, an AFFI,
Okay.
Illinois Associated Firefighters,
Okay.
and then there's an international level. So and they're the guys who lobby in Washington.
Gotcha.
So like
But
the guys at the go ahead.
so do you have to pay?
Yeah,
Pay-
so
you
we
pay
pay
dues.
we
Pay
pay
money
up-
into that, yeah.
Gotcha, gotcha,
Yeah.
gotcha.
So like where they benefit us at the state level is like they will go in and during COVID it was a big thing because nobody knew what that was. So they could they got us like presumptive benefits,
Okay.
and at the international
What's that
level.
mean?
So if you got sick during COVID, like right now, there's a bunch of guys who have got like some weird heart disease and
Yeah.
like lung disease.
Oh.
And if you got, yeah, right. And if you
Well,
got,
that-
if you were a working firefighter and you contracted COVID, it was presumed that you got it on the job because you were going out and interacting with these people.
Okay.
Did you guys have to get vaccinated?
It wasn't mandated. Most of us did.
Most of them.
When they did the
That's off subject. I was
when
just
they did the thing at the
Yeah.
Oakley Lindsay Center, we manned it in case somebody had a negative reaction.
Oh.
So like me, for
Oh, wow.
example,
Oh, so that's kind of
I
like a
was there
double-
all the time, so I'm like, yeah, I might as well get a shot. while
Well,
I'm
as a public kind of
Dang.
You know,
like,
yeah. It was
golly.
convenience.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna lie. Kind of like a flu shot. If I'm working the
Wouldn't it
day,
also
the day they give the flu shot, I'll get
made
it.
to
If not-
protect it even okay. We could go totally off. Holy shit, we could go so off kilter on all these.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
I
let's
was
go
still
back
having
to
babies anyway, so I went ahead and got it.
so every 3 years we will negotiate our contract.
Okay.
And so here's the good thing to know for the city. We can't strike as firefighters.
Okay.
So this came about in the 60s.
You sure you want to say that?
That's
Say
fine.
he's
No,
lying.
They
everybody knows it.
They know.
No, they know it.
We can
So-
pick it, but we can't strike.
There you
Right.
go.
So back in the 60s and 70s, like Chicago, Champaign, some of these guys, they actually struck. And what came out of that is that we can't strike, but we have a thing called binding arbitration. Okay, so that it means like if we can't reach a deal, and the cops here in Quincy actually went through this a couple of years ago, and you can read the arbitration rulings out there. If we can't reach an agreement, we're too far apart, we take it in front of like a retired judge, and they split the difference, decide who's right and wrong, what you can't afford, what you can't afford. Because when we do that, a lot of times, we play a game. We go high, they go low. We always meet in the middle. That's what always ends
Well, it's
up
kind of what the city did with their
Yeah.
property tax raise.
Exactly.
Mhm.
That's what always happens.
Yes.
So what's good for us at the state level is we can actually all the financial records are they're public. So we have like dedicated people at our state union level who research this, and they say, okay, here's what we realistically think the city can afford. And when we go to arbitration, we have to present our case and say, look, now we think this is what they can afford. And now if the city came in and be like, look, we're flat broke,
Yeah.
they need to be able to prove it. Now, if they can prove it, then that's where we would say we would go into arbitration and lose that battle. We would like, okay, and there's been times we've taken a 0%.
Yes, taking 0%.
We just took a big
took
health
furlough
insurance.
days, things like that.
Yeah. Every time we negotiate a contract, it's like you know, we're not just getting more and more and more and more.
Yeah.
The thing is, to get something, you have to give something up.
Right.
You know, so for years, we just didn't take a bunch of pay raises. Guys wanted more time off with their family and stuff
Right.
like that.
Right.
But, you know, there were days we did take furloughs. We did
Yep.
take 0%. You know, and we actually just went through this in our last contract. All the raises we ever gotten over the last 20 years, all we did was keep up with inflation.
Gotcha.
We never beat inflation for the last 20
I think
years.
that's everyone though.
Yeah, and that's
Sure,
what I'm
yeah.
saying is like when people look at the numbers, because it's public, and people will go out there and be like, look at how much these firefighters are making. I just ask, you know, keep in mind, like, yes, those are high numbers, but keep in mind the amount of hours we work. Also, when you look at comparative fire departments across the state, we're in the bottom third, you know,
Okay.
for comparative cities. So your tax dollars are being spent very well
Yeah.
for something like this. Okay. So that kind of answers.
Wait, I thought they weren't. I thought that they weren't being spent right.
They're not being lavishly spent
Allocated
on,
well, maybe?
Yeah, it's like
Okay.
on salaries
All right.
is what I'm saying.
Okay.
So like it's not like you've got a bunch of firefighters sitting around not doing anything and they're making, you know, 6 figures to do that. No.
In regards to the pensions,
Mhm.
my understanding, so again, I'm learning, you give a percentage out saying like we need this much to make this pension happen. If you don't make that percentage, then that falls on the city, right?
Not sure.
Like if you don't make the percentage that you need for the year for the pensions,
Oh, and the
then
return?
yes, then the fallback
That's part of the
falls-
actuary.
Yeah. Yeah. So
Yeah.
they'll look at what the fund got as a return, and then they'll look at projected, and then like where your fund is, how many guys you've got, where it's going, and that's how they kind of come up with.
How many year or how many times has it happened where like it does like you don't make that projection and it does fall back on the city?
Oh, it happens every year now because it's not funded to that 80%. Because we're not putting enough. For
That-
years, they weren't putting enough money in. They were just kind of
That-
covering the bases.
That's
They
why
weren't getting
that's why the pensions have become to the forefront. Was once this got mandated that you will fund it by 60% by 2025, 70, and I'm just making up the numbers, I don't know them off the top of my
Yeah.
head, but now it's ramping up quickly.
Do we know what year?
So
that
it's so it's
kind of-
increasing significantly.
What?
Yeah,
2040.
by
No, do we know what
2040,
year it
90%.
started
think it
that
was-
we kind of like started
Oh, kicking the can
Yeah.
forever. Because when you go back and look
like
at
40 years, 50 years?
at least, because in
Yeah, absolutely.
1970 there was a constitutional amendment to the Constitution then because there was a pension crisis.
Okay.
So it's been forever.
So it's not a new administration thing. So
No.
let's go ahead and make that clear.
And they're doing
Yeah.
a good job. They've actually funded it at 104% of the actuarial.
Okay.
So they're playing.
Well,
catch up.
Yeah, absolutely.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Trying to pay back.
Yep.
and-
Because it's a problem that's been recognized.
But now, how have they done that? Do we know?
Well, so property tax
Uh-huh.
is the big one, and
Okay.
then video gaming, I think, is the other.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. Because everybody's wondering where that money went. And then another thing I was thinking was lottery money because it used to be slated for education, but we all know that's not
Well,
happening.
another one is the.
That's
It's not happening.
Like when
Yeah.
you buy something on eBay and that they collect sales tax. now.
Yeah.
So our sales tax was diminishing. We eat and breathe
Mhm.
sales tax
Yeah.
in Quincy. And now that got passed that they have to collect sales tax on internet
Amazon.
transactions.
Sure.
So that gave the city a lot of money
Little
back.
extra
that-
revenue.
Yeah, yes, that they
So-
weren't getting. And,
Okay,
and one
so-
more point I'd like
Yes,
real quick,
of
the
course.
pensions, we pay just shy of 10% of our salary into the pension.
Is that yearly?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
your annual salary.
Yeah,
Okay.
your annual salary.
If you make
Or-
70,000,
like-
you pay 7,000 a year.
It's like 9.94%
9.94%.
or something, like just shy of 10. Yeah. So,
So you
So
pay.
we pay into.
and another one is we do not, the
collect.
city nor us, we don't pay into Social Security.
Right.
So
You don't
we-
collect.
We don't pay into.
You
We,
don't
we
pay
don't,
in.
we don't,
Don't
the
pay
city
in.
doesn't pay in and
Okay.
we don't pay in.
Well, I'll tell you this.
So-
I don't want to pay in either. That's a fucking shit. I will say that. But we're not getting anything back on that. But anyway, I have a question real quick and then I'll
Yeah, go
shoot
ahead.
it back to you. So, and this is going to be probably a little, let's call it a touchy subject. Okay.
for it.
So, if you were to retire tomorrow or soon, how would you feel or how would it be feasible to freeze pensions, move to a traditional 401k to make things a little more or a little less controversial, I guess is maybe what I would call it.
Well,
And I'm not, that's not me put.
I think
won't-
I don't
it
think it's
won't
gonna happen. to be
It
Okay.
honest.
Because like we said, you'd have to change the pension code at the state.
Okay.
But let's talk about some not, okay, let's start easy and then work our way up to
Amen.
controversial,
Do it.
how we
Yes.
kind of pay for these things.
Okay.
Because like we said, we keep kicking the can down the road. So where does the money come from? Okay. So let's just start with, we could afford it the way we're doing it now.
Okay.
We get a little bit of an increase here and there off the property tax. We keep using the video gaming money. It's going to be annoying, but we can keep doing it.
Sure.
What I would say, so not so controversial, the marijuana sales tax money.
Yeah.
No, I don't know how much that even is.
It's a lot.
It's a lot, but
It's
I
a
don't
lot.
think the city actually has to report how much they get from that.
Really?
I have never seen. I looked for it and I can't find that number.
Hmm.
Okay, so there's that. That was new money. Okay,
That's
new
big
that
money.
we didn't know, and then the food and beverage tax. We said, oh my god.
That's fun. Yes. Thank you. I knew she was coming in on
That's
the
what I
top
was
of that.
supposed
Yes.
to go to originally.
Knew she was coming in hot with
Yep.
that.
From a bird that's the next thing that, maybe our food and beverage tax is now going to be used to pay off pensions,
Okay.
which how do you,
So well, let's talk about that one for a minute because that was what it was.
That's what it was
we
supposed to
wanted
be
it
for. That's what they,
Yeah.
the food
they,
and beverage
they,
tax?
they contacted
initially?
our
Initially.
union to
Yeah.
promote the food
This
and beverage
is
tax.
so
Yeah,
it's
they,
told
no, they
that-
contacted us to promote it actually
Yeah.
because it was going to go to the
And new
pensions.
money. But like, let's think about that for a minute. So like, I'm from Barry. Everybody from Barry comes to Quincy to eat.
Yeah.
These are the people you want to be taxing.
Right.
You know, and bump it up to 2%. Like it's coming up again.
Get out.
You eat out a lot
That's
like
just
I
me.
do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it comes back to like, do you want to bear the brunt of that and maybe some of the people from Barry, or do you want to pay it on your property tax side?
it is news to me that was ever even, so that was brought to your union.
That was
It was before he was there, but yes, it was
I can
brought,
see that.
we talked, Alderman, the mayor
Because
at the
it was
time, talked
always
to us
sold
about
to the
promoting.
public as, this is
tourism.
tourism.
Well, I
And then it
mean,
became-
let's be quiet on it.
It's like my thing is, show me how we get a return off that money, the tourism money. Like I don't. That one just
Well,
drives.
your
me
bartenders
crazy.
get your return.
Okay.
I get
Yeah.
a return.
But as like tax dollars, if
No,
you
but-
spend
yeah.
what there's like 1.9 million we collect out of this thing, and we give it to tourism, do we get that 1.9 back in sales tax? Like I don't know. If it's working, keep doing it.
I think there was a surplus at one time, right? So they lowered our property taxes, and now all of a sudden we're going to be raised. It's like, get it figured out, guys. That's all I'm asking. Let's figure it out because
But
I don't want.
when they lowered it,
Yeah.
your assessed
I know.
value didn't
Yeah.
actually went
I know.
up.
It's
So-
all smoke and mirrors, and that's
Okay.
why I keep talking about transparency and all the. So it's like it's conditioned.
Yep.
It's formulated to be confusing because if you don't know and you don't ask questions, then it just happens behind the scenes and you
Yep.
just swallow it, which is why we're so happy you guys
Yeah,
came out.
And so let's talk about like
Yeah.
so like we talked about we negotiate contracts and
Yeah.
stuff. To be blunt, like we're never going to negotiate our pensions away.
Yeah.
And the state, good luck trying to get them to give it away.
Yeah.
Okay, so the question is like, how do we pay for these things?
Yeah.
If we chucked in food and beverage, the marijuana tax and the video gaming, we'd probably come pretty close.
But wasn't there a corporation in Quincy not too long ago, not mentioning any names, that did freeze pensions and move to a 401k?
Not that I'm aware. If it was
Mm.
private.
Oh, well, private industry
Yeah,
does
private.
that all the time,
Yeah.
absolutely. I mean,
Yeah,
But not public.
not a public.
Okay.
well, I mean, yeah,
You'd be hard.
I
pressed,
talk too
yeah,
much, but
Maybe.
No.
I mean, does
don't.
everybody, I mean, you know what a pension is, right, compared to a 401? Let's say I got
Yeah.
$1 million in my 401k
Yeah.
and I retire. And then 2008 happens. Like,
Yeah.
holy crap, I only got
You know.
500,000 in there now. I can't afford to take any money in.
Pension's a guarantee.
Yeah,
But a
a
lot
pension,
of it
a pension is,
is-
yep.
But a lot of
here's my
401k is I'm
You're in charge
responsible
of it.
for it
Yeah.
and in charge of it.
Well, the other point.
So there's a good
to the best of your ability.
Well,
there's a
let's-
good
You
and
know,
a bad.
like you
Well, I
can't
have-
control the
Yeah.
stock market crashing or going to crap.
But I do have control of how it's invested or how I receive it and how
But
I.
every firefighter also contributes to a Roth and an IRA.
Yeah.
So let's just like easy math numbers. If you retired at like today's salary for a 20-year engineer, you would draw 50% pension, roughly $44,000 a year in pension benefits before tax. and you still have to pay health insurance.
Yeah.
There's not a firefighter that retires at 50 and just kicks their feet up in a recliner.
Right.
They can't
They're
afford
doing
to.
second.
They're going to
No,
have
but
to
they're
go back to
allowed-
work.
Yeah, they all go back
Which
to
can,
work.
so it's
They all-
living.
And then you can
Yeah.
work though after. Like
And
that's the
To be
difference.
quite
That's the
frank, I
difference.
think that's the only reason people get pissed.
Yeah.
Because I
Yeah.
can't retire until I'm 67.
Yeah.
If then,
But
I'm
they're not.
68.
Yeah.
I just found that
Exactly.
out today. I'm like,
I'm never
not
retiring.
gonna-
I'm never
I'm not-
retiring
I'm
the
not
way I
even
live.
making
No,
it.
I'm gonna have to work until my bones are completely dead. But it is
Right.
what it
And
is.
the thing is, when you look at firefighters, it's 200% times more likely to get cancer.
Yeah.
Okay, like the wear and tear on your body.
Yeah.
The high rate of suicide is
Yeah.
the thing. We actually lose more fires anymore to suicide than we do to like line of duty deaths. Like this stuff has an impact. And like I
Yeah.
said, that's why it's always been this handshake agreement. Like we are going to do dangerous things to protect you and your family. This is what we're asking for in return.
Yeah.
Can
And
you change the hours? Like, don't you think that's the biggest wear and tear in the mental?
It's
Isn't it possible?
it's
Really?
tough
I don't
because
know.
like you have to keep the trucks manned 24/7. So even if you went to like a
I
12,
think it sounds like a
12,
scheduling issue, but
somebody would have to work at nights, which they actually do a bunch of research about shift work. Like if you work days and then go work nights, it's just as bad for you as anything. Like it's almost
Well,
as
then
bad
I'm-
as-
Okay, well now I'm gonna roll into
It's
something
horrible.
pretty fun, and then we can kind of wrap it up because I feel like this has been a fantastic conversation.
Thank
Maybe
you
we can have you guys
again.
back. But thank you guys so much. So, do you guys ever haze new?
No.
Yes, I swear.
Uh,
Okay, so if I were a firefighter, how would you haze someone?
goes, can you go straight in the hose?
Straight in the hose,
Straighten the hose.
like fix it. That's a pretty damn good one.
Hmm.
All right.
Make sure all the wrinkles are out.
Well, there was one particular fireman. We zip tied his bed so that it wasn't in the hooks. So when he laid on his bed, the zip ties broke and the bed
And he fell down.
collapsed. Yeah. So
Yes. See, this is what I'm talking about.
Oh, absolutely.
So
You
you
gotta-
have to have some fun.
yeah.
Because when you're faced with bullshit pension conversations, firefighting, literally firefighting, trying to sustain a family life and a career, you have to have some fun. Do you guys have any fantastic memories? One or two.
Oh yeah. We had one guy that his wife brought in this beautiful birthday cake at the main station, and I was at an outstation, and the kitchen is on the second floor. So when everybody was kind of quiet or whatever, not in the kitchen, we threw a ladder to the second floor and we ran up and we wrote a little ransom note and we smudged some icing on the thing and said, "Hey, if you want the cake back," and we took the cake back to our station.
Yes.
Another time I was up at the top of the aerial truck, and there's nozzles on the top of the aerial truck, and engine company 4 came in, and I aimed the nozzle at them, and I said, "Hey, pull the deck gun, pull the deck gun," and they pulled the gate for that and just drenched their ass.
Oh, water.
Yeah, they started to walk towards Central, and then they got wet. They just turned around, and got. They didn't even.
All right.
come in.
You?
We stole the can openers one time, and you would think like that's a little
Minute thing, but
it's
no.
like, where are my can openers? You know?
I was gonna say, I would go insane.
Chili then?
Oh my God, I'm going insane.
Yeah, it's always something. Can I go back to the funding piece?
Yeah.
of this?
Yes.
So there's a couple things I want to bring up too, and open invitation. I appreciate you guys having these conversations, but we need to have a more detailed conversation. Like we almost need like committee, task force, whatever you need want
Yes.
to try to figure it out.
Mhm.
Because other cities are doing these things. Like Kankakee, they actually just sold a bunch of bonds, and that's how they're paying for it.
Okay.
So they they sold bonds as a city, took every like $60 million, threw it into their pension. The money that they're paying back those bonds with is cheaper than the pensions.
Yeah.
So like there's creative solutions out there. So like
Solutions,
that's a
baby.
medium one.
Yeah.
There's a really controversial one. So we're actually a really unique department that we don't run an ambulance. There's most fire departments throughout the state run an ambulance and generate income
Okay.
off of it. So the county's always been traditionally in charge of that, but like if you wanted to generate revenue like that's already there, shift it from the county to the city, you've already got the people, you just need the trucks. Like hire a couple guys and your fire department could be generating revenue.
That's so awesome. I was going to ask solutions and totally got sidetracked because I was so
Yeah.
I was so
And if
hell
you-
bent on the
Yeah.
fun stories, but
If
no,
you
that's
ever
awesome.
Yeah.
call an ambulance, a fire truck shows up.
Shows up
Yeah.
anyway.
And we typically get there. It's called dual response.
Yeah.
It's
dual
mandated.
response. Yeah.
And here's the other thing. So we've got less firefighters than we've ever had. We just set another record for calls ran. Generally, we'll run about 4,000. We ran almost 4,700 again this
In
year.
a-
In 2024.
4650, wasn't
It was closer to 47. Yeah, it was,
Okay.
it
I was
For the
literally on the
total of the
last.
year.
For a
I was
year.
on the last call of the
Okay.
year.
Yeah.
It
It
was
was
10
a lot.
o'clock on New Year's.
Well,
Eve.
no
Do you
one's arguing.
answer
Sorry.
cats and trees calls
They
anymore?
had one on.
You
down here
can't
on
make
Main.
this up. We literally,
Just
the
had
very
this.
first call of 2025 was
A cat stuck.
dispatch engine company such and such is en route to check on the well-being of a cat.
Yeah.
That's
Whoa.
literally the first.
We had a
call of
cat
the
in a
year.
car, and nobody came.
Yeah,
guys.
I
Just
called-
throwing it out there.
It was New Year's Day though. I will give it, or New Year's Eve, I think, and I called all the stations and they're like,
Mother
"Please
up."
help."
Well, okay. So, thank you guys so much. Of course, we would love to have you back. I think that transparency, the conversations are necessary.
I
I'm
think
sure
we're gonna have you back because there'll be, I'm sure.
lots more
things.
conversations. I do think it's really important to keep these conversations abreast. I love learning more things. It's one of my favorite. It's one of my favorite aspects about my.
I hope this goes on at the fire station, like you put it on the big screen.
I hope so. Oh,
Yeah.
speaking of, hey, CB, here's the thing. When I said fundraising, I did mean the library, not you guys. That was totally, I'm sure I had some shots, but I was like, maybe they should do fundraising because I was like, well, the library had, there's like Friends of Library. I thought they could probably make money. Not you guys. Nobody's got,
Yeah.
I
And
don't
that's all.
expect you to do that, but
There
I,
are people
kind
who
of cool.
think that we should be out there.
Well, like the public
paying.
schools do it and they get
Oh, no.
pensions.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well,
So,
Yeah.
but they don't fund their pensions that way. They're probably
don't.
doing it for like their.
see again, I don't know.
That's why we
shit
do
from
bingo.
Shinola.
So
Yeah.
like we do bingo.
There you go.
Literally tonight, you
Yeah.
should be there.
Yeah.
With the notes.
Tuesdays tomorrow.
Do bingo.
Yes.
It's a good
Yeah.
time.
Love it.
Yeah.
I'm working
Guys,
it is.
you guys are phenomenal. Thank you so much. I knew that this was going to be a great conversation. As always, I learned something new. And this is pretty important shit. So hopefully people enjoy it. And if you have questions or if you want them to come back and if you have more questions, we would love to have them back on.
There's
and-
always questions, and it's so
Yeah.
complicated. And
It is
if we can just drive home at anything, it's like we can't just hammer the table and say we're not going to pay for these.
Yeah.
Like they're not going away.
Yeah.
So how do we as a community come together to figure out how to pay for
Fix it. Yeah.
and fix the mistake and I think that's always the hang up is like we should demand from our leaders to be honest with us
Yeah.
and say these things are not going away and we don't want to make cuts to our fire department. How do we pay for these
Yeah.
things? And like we can't just say, wow, it's a problem, let's get rid of it. Like
Yeah.
the first thing in leadership is admit there's a problem. And it's not even the people who are there now. It happened 40, 50 years ago and now you
Yeah.
have
So
this
you don't have to like
thing, yeah.
feel this ego.
Right.
It's
That-
let's fix it.
Yeah, let's find a way to fix it.
Amen. Love it. Guys, happy new year. Thank you so much for coming on. I hope you
Cheers.
have fun. And
Cheers.
Yeah, I'm going to a 76-year-old man's
No.
party.
this was
Birthday
awesome.
party.
I think our community deserves this. We love to bring it to you. So cheers to you and to you and to you and happy new year, guys. Cheers to everything and thank you so much for coming on.
Appreciate it.
Absolutely. Thank you.
All right,
you.
thank you.